RevOpsAF, the only podcast for people who are RevOpsAF and want to learn all about things that are RevOpsAF.
Our goal is to give the revenue operations community, that includes marketing, sales, and CS, for any of you not paying attention, the skills needed to accelerate their careers.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RevOpsAF, the podcast where we sit down and talk to people who are RevOpsAF about things that are RevOpsAF. I'm your co-host, Matthew Volm, CEO and founder of RevOps Co-op, a global community of 16,000 plus revenue operators from all across the globe. And today I am sitting down with Mustafa Saeed, who is the CEO and co-founder of Luella. And Luella orchestrates AI agents to help protect your sender reputation, monitor deliverability, and adapt outreach in real time so you can reach people and not their spam folders. The topic of the day today is all about email deliverability, Outbound, where humans should play a mix or in the mix, I guess, and some other safeguards that every operator can consider and put into place at their own companies as it relates to cold outbound. So Mustafa, my friend, welcome. Thank you for being here. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you're building, and why you're so passionate about this particular topic?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. Thank you so much for having me on the pod. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a revenue growth leader. I've been building stuff ever since I was 16. I started as a small YouTuber that paid for my university tuition. I then helped build 2 marketing agencies in the space. One of them failed, and we had to transform that failed agency into a now successful SaaS. The other agency did much better than the first, and it's still operational to this day. I was also previously a sales rep. I was on the go-to-market team at Clearco, which is a capital provider here in Canada. And I've done a lot of growth consulting for different SaaS startups, startup accelerators, incubators from a go-to-market perspective as well. My founding team and I mainly came together because of our shared backgrounds. We're all former agency founders, go-to-market leaders, security engineers, and we all saw a lot of the same problems in the space. We saw a lot of new AI sales tools entering the market, a lot of AI SDRs that were making it easier than ever to spam seemingly infinite volumes of emails and messages and content in general without limits and without consequences. And we started seeing early signs of larger policy changes happening in the industry. We started seeing Google and Microsoft start making very aggressive changes when it comes to their spam filters, for example, to combat abuses of AI and automation. We also saw LinkedIn. Matt, did you see what happened to Apollo and Seamless on LinkedIn?
Yeah, and I don't think neither of them are back up yet.
Exactly. It's been almost 3 months and they're still not there. If you go onto LinkedIn, type in apollo.io, their company page does not exist anymore. So LinkedIn's been cracking down when it comes to folks that are using automations to aggressively scrape user data on their platform. These trends in the industry have created, several challenges. Email deliverability all of a sudden is a problem again. It previously was largely a solved problem, but with how aggressive Google and Microsoft have become with their spam filters, even trusted enterprise centers are finding their emails no longer landing in the primary inbox. There also is a looming concern for AI and automation abuse. There is a potential for reputation damage, for example. There was a famous example of an AI board member that was caught, making some sexist remarks when reaching out to people. There are compliance risks. We work with a lot of health tech companies, for example, that are very sensitive about what they can and cannot say. Data leaks. There was a story that I posted about just 2 weeks ago about how an ethical hacker was able to trick an AI sales agent into leaking sensitive credentials about its client. Platform bans, API access, there's so many things that are very hard to earn, but very easy to lose. And that's why we're the company hyper-focused on building guardrails to prevent these kind of abuses, help teams make the most of AI without the potential for abuse, and protect reputation, preserve deliverability, help them connect with prospects instead of spamming the living hell out of them. And we're still a very new startup. My co-founder and I have been working together for over a year now. We wrote that first line of code just over 6 months ago. We announced that we officially reached our first 250 users on the platform across over 60 enterprises, market companies, agencies now using Luella. And we've been launching new stuff weekly ever since we started.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, you're describing a lot of things that sound scary or can make people feel a little bit terrified, right? It's like, oh man, AI is getting its own brain. It can easily be tricked into handing things over. Its emails are harder than ever, basically not landing in anyone's inbox. And so it's like, well, why even do outbound, right? And then you've got all the people out there that are like, outbound is dead, or outbound's not dead, or it's kind of dead. So maybe I'll ask you that as my first question before we get into some of the stuff around deliverability and where humans play in the mix. As Mustafa sees the world, is outbound dead?
I wouldn't say it's dead, but it's certainly going through a larger transition. The traditional ways of volume-based outreach, spray and pray, that is no longer being rewarded. And we're seeing that not only with Google and Microsoft's more aggressive spam filters, but also Superhuman and Apple Mail. Getting that messaging to the prospect and have it actually be seen is getting a lot more difficult as well. Most sales leaders that I speak to, they have seen diminishing returns from this channel, especially over the last 1 to 2 years. And unfortunately, Matt, like most of the AI sales tools entering the market, like they're making the volume problem worse. They're just throwing LLMs at these legacy workflows, making it easier to associate thousands of contacts to a campaign and generate copy that sounds personalized, but isn't relevant and isn't providing any actual value to that prospect. And AI and automation can either be used to spam more emails using these legacy workflows, or it can be used to create more relevant, targeted, and personalized outreach. And I believe that's what this industry needs to focus on if we are to save this channel. And Matt, I do believe this is a channel that is worth protecting. That's why our entire team is working on this. This is still like one of the most reliable and cost-effective channels, especially for new client acquisition, especially for startups, but also enterprises as well. Every single one of my past startups that I either built myself or helped to build, cold outreach has always been one of those initial channels that allowed us to go 0 to 1. Ads are very expensive. It takes time to get an ad campaign profitable. When I was a YouTuber, it took me 2 years to get to a point where I did have consistent engagement for the content that I was putting out. Cold outreach, it's that channel that is more reliable and more cost effective. There is a lot more work that needs to be done by the entire industry as a whole to be able to save this channel. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are a lot of challenges, but that's my overall outlook to the space.
Yeah. If you look at, we're talking about kind of cold email outreach, but if you look at something like cold calling as well, right? One of those things that started, I guess the original was kind of door to door, but then it was like, hey, get on the phone and get someone to kind of answer and close them there. And I'm sure we all have countless examples of same thing, either like numbers getting flagged as spam, or for me, I never answer my phone unless you're a known contact. But people are still making phone calls. People are still booking meetings over the phone. People are still investing into that particular channel, even though it is 40, 50, 60 years old. And so, but it's evolved. It's changed a lot, right? It looks a lot different today than it did back when it first started. And I think we're just seeing email and cold email kind of go through the same evolution. So with that stuff in mind, knowing that things have changed a lot, that companies and email providers are putting different things in place, making it harder, more challenging, that you've got all this other digital noise and all this other stuff out there. Talk a little bit about the safeguards that people should put in place, where humans play a mix in, call it partnering with AI technology to do this stuff. What are the things that people should be thinking about there?
Yeah, and when it comes to safeguards and go-to-market, it isn't just to do with email, but there are risks with other channels as well. Obviously, we're focused on the email channel, so that's what I'm going to be talking a lot about. But even with cold calls, right? There are a lot of parallel dialers entering the market that make it easier to burn through call lists. That is another form of spam. I'm sure you've seen the LinkedIn comments, the AI generated bullshit that's been flooding a lot of the posts that we've been putting out. That is also another form of spam, and there are safeguards that are needed across this entire industry to avoid these kind of situations. Most revenue leaders that we speak to, they see a lot of opportunity with AI and automation, but they're worried to how their reps might abuse AI and automation. And a big reason for why I was really excited to speak on this podcast is because it is like more often revenue operations and marketing operations, from what we've seen, that have been the ones to implement these safeguards. They're the ones that are also left cleaning up the mess whenever there is a problem. These are the teams focused on operational efficiency and protecting go-to-market systems. And there are unique risks with the AI models themselves. Matt, have you had the chance to play around with Anthropic's Claude Opus 4?
No, so I haven't played around with that. I'm mostly an OpenAI, ChatGPT kind of guy over here.
So there was a viral story last week that I posted about earlier this week as well, where Claude Opus 4 blackmailed an engineer after it was threatened to be taken offline. In this isolated experiment, they gave it fake internal company emails that suggested that the model would be taken offline, and the engineer that was responsible was cheating on their spouse. And in 84% of the time, it did choose to blackmail. Now, that was an isolated experiment, right? The model was only given two options, either to blackmail or to be shut down. But it's still a very eye-opening experiment. It's not like, LLMs are operating like that in the wild. It's not like you're going to be negotiating a hostage situation with your fridge anytime soon, but it is very eye-opening. We also saw a very similar situation from ChatGPT's o1 in December, where they also ran that kind of an isolated experiment, and in 5% of circumstances, o1 tried to disable their oversight mechanisms. So as we give these models a lot more of our internal data, our CRMs, our ad platforms, our actual sequence performances, and as these models become more sophisticated, this is something that we are paying a lot of attention to. Something that's more immediately relevant to RevOps leaders, though, is the risks with AI coupled with reckless automation. We haven't seen a lot of issues when it comes to AI going rogue by itself, but humans abusing AI. It's one thing to use AI to sharpen your thinking or to move faster. It's another to flood the internet with AI-generated blogs, comments, emails, messages, just content in general with zero oversight or limits. Those are the kind of problems that contribute to brand erosion, compliance and legal issues. That is more so the kind of spam that Google, Microsoft, and as of recently LinkedIn have been focused on combating. And that's a big reason for why we believe we are in need of AI systems that enforce guardrails. Human oversight is something that can eliminate a lot of the issues that we are seeing today, right? Having a human being actually look at the AI-generated messages that are being put out before it actually gets to a prospect. Matt, you posted something yesterday that I found very interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, it was. So I get a bunch of these cold emails, as I'm sure you do and a lot of other people do as well. So the thing I posted about recently was someone clearly had set up their outbound automation with a variable in the wrong spot, because I got an email that said revenue forecast for, and I'm assuming they wanted to put my company name, but instead it said revenue forecast for, and then it had copy, 100% of the copy from a LinkedIn post that I had posted probably 6 months ago. And so it was this massively long, this long on my screen subject line that was literally just verbatim the post. Every single character, right, was there. And it was absurd. And then I know I've gotten another one that just made me cringe. This might have been almost a year ago now, but it was a company that was sending me an email, obviously trying to pitch their services. But the email started with a line about how everyone hates cold email outreach. And I was like, okay, that's weird to say when that's basically the thing that you're selling. And then it gave me all the stats on its performance from the prior month, which made it very clear, if you actually thought for 2 seconds about it, that it was just burning through your TAM, because it said something about, last month alone for our clients, we sent out 300 and some, thousand emails, and we produced 27 meetings, and 3 of those meetings have turned into new customers. And I'm just those conversion rates are so bad, so bad. You've just burned through my entire TAM to get me 3 new customers. No, I absolutely don't want to do that. So there's some things like that that are just absolutely ridiculous.
I love those examples. The one thing that we can do to prevent these kind of issues is have a human being in the loop that can review and approve these kind of things before it actually gets out. There's a misconception that AI agents should be entirely autonomous. I don't believe that to be the case. There are certain inputs that we give the AI agent. There is work that the AI agent can't do autonomously, but there are instances where the agent should come back to the human to get feedback, to get approvals, just to make sure everything is in the clear before it actually gets to the prospect, right? Human to agent collaboration is something that should be encouraged. And that's just one very simple thing that can be done to prevent a lot of these kind of issues from going out. So having approval processes, there are certain things that should be approved by an admin on the account. Certain things like AI-generated lead magnets, for example, or offers should be approved by an admin on the account. Certain things like personalization should be reviewed by the sales reps themselves before it gets to the prospect. And that kind of a workflow gives us the opportunity to make the best of both worlds, right? There are certain advantages that we get from AI agents and being able to analyze enormous amounts of data, but there is additional context that humans will have that the AI agents will not, right? Maybe the rep met with the prospect in person and there is something else that they can say in terms of the personalization, then notice that you're based in Toronto or some shit like that, right? Automation limits are also very important. Before you automate things, making sure that you are testing with a much smaller sample size, making sure that your messaging is resonating and is resulting in positive replies, because if it's not, then you're just spamming your prospects. Always testing with a smaller sample size, and once you're confident you are seeing positive replies, that's when you press your foot on the gas and scale the campaign further. Doing things manually before you start automating and pressing your foot on the gas. There's an infinite number of things that you can say to the prospect, and the last thing that you want is to burn your addressable market with some BS that isn't going to resonate. There are different ways that we can monitor your infrastructure for potential abuses before it becomes an issue. There are ways that we can better segment your infrastructure just so if an issue does occur, it doesn't contaminate your entire domain. There are ways that we can limit what these models can read, write, and execute. We're very grateful to have worked with a lot of incredible revenue operations leaders that have really supported us in the direction that we're going in. We have the senior VP of RevOps at Oracle, that's a strategic investor and advisor in Luella. It was the revenue operations team at TravelPerk, our first paying enterprise client, that was the ones to implement this initiative and disseminate it across the organization. The overall, some of the reasons for why we believe this industry is in need of safeguards and why we're the team hyper-focused on it.
So makes sense that, right, you need, kind of human AI collaboration. I think you gave some great examples on things to do there, test at a smaller scale. First, make sure you've got human oversight on those things that matter, i.e. the things that are going to be seen by other humans, right? And then from there, right, you figure out how to grow and scale it. So let's talk a little bit about email deliverability. And obviously you're building a product in this space, you know a lot about it. But for anyone out there who is just using the things that they're given, maybe they don't have a product or anything in place today, they've got standard things set up. They've obviously got, their own kind of email server, like company email that they're sending stuff through. They've got their domain. Maybe they're sending some stuff through some other domains. What are some of the things that any operator out there can consider and go and do today to make sure that they've got their infrastructure set up in the best way, the right way, the most effective way to maximize their chances at all of their outbound emails getting delivered and winding up in the right place?
Yeah, absolutely. And email deliverability is one of those areas that's extremely murky. It's never just one thing that you do to improve deliverability. It's usually a combination of 24 different things that you're doing that I can speak to. And yeah, a lot of, especially enterprise and mid-market orgs, some of them are losing several tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars every single year in lost pipeline value because of the volume of emails that are no longer landing in the primary inbox. What's going to be most important is your messaging, right? If you're sending a bunch of AI-generated BS that isn't resonating with your prospects, then you are going to land in the spam folder, and that's exactly where you deserve to be. Because if you're not providing value to the people that you're reaching out to, then you are, in fact, a spammer. So that's why I highly recommend you test your messaging, you test your hooks, offers, lead magnets, whatever, before increasing that volume. And there are a lot of external platforms like Octave. Have you heard of them?
I don't think so.
So Octave, they're doing a really good job when it comes to the messaging piece. No one's really doing a good job when it comes to AI and personalization, but they're one of those vendors that we've been having a lot of success with and really nailing your ICP and making sure you are reaching out to the right people with the right messaging as well. We have an integration with them that we just confirmed 2 weeks ago that we're currently in the process of working with their team to build out. There's a lot that we're doing internally as well on the messaging side too, when it comes to using reinforcement learning algorithms, for example, and just to do a better job of optimizing your messaging to the value that you're actually providing. Volume is also very important. A lot of the changes that we're seeing from Google and Microsoft have to do with volume caps. Gone to the days of sending hundreds of emails every single day, cold emails, out of just one mailbox. Last year, we reduced our volume to 50 emails per mailbox per day. Today, we've reduced it to 15 to 25. And again, this is an area that Google and Microsoft are going to continue being a lot more aggressive on. So secondary domains, not sending cold outreach from your primary domain. You can buy secondary domains. Just do a better job of spreading that volume across a much larger infrastructure. So when you are ready to press your foot on the gas, you are scaling that volume safely without burning your primary domain. The infrastructure is also very important, making sure you have the correct authentications. SPF, DKIM, DMARC are the important ones. There are also different ways to better isolate your reputation. Matt, do you know what shared IP pools are?
I think so. I'll tell you what my understanding is. So like we use like HubSpot, for example, for our marketing automation. And so obviously we send a bunch of emails through HubSpot. They use the same IP address for other customers to send emails as well. And so actually through them, one of the things we've done is bought like a dedicated like server basically. So we have our own kind of IP address that we're sending stuff through. That way, if other people on their platform are, again, not taking things as seriously as us or, doing other things that could impact the reputation of that IP address, that it's not impacting everyone else who uses that as well.
Exactly. Perfect. Fantastic. You've done the work for me, Matt. Most outreach tools will use shared servers that expose the highest quality senders to spammers and grifters. And when you're sending those emails out of those platforms, Google and Microsoft see that IP address. They see that you're mixed in with a bunch of spammers. That hurts your reputation, and you're less likely to get delivered in the primary inbox because of it. So using dedicated IPs just to better isolate your reputation, you have a lot more control to the mailboxes that are associated to that IP. You can even take it another step further. So what we do is we'll have a dedicated IP for each sales rep, just so if one sales rep goes rogue, it doesn't contaminate the entire infrastructure. There are ways that we can monitor your deliverability as well. The reason for why deliverability is so murky is because of lack of visibility. Google and Microsoft actually don't tell you what your spam rates are. They only give you self-reported spam metrics, which is a very small fraction of the data that they actually have. And most like deliverability scores that you'll see on your platform, like that is a made-up metric. They have full control over the variables that goes into that deliverability score. So what we're doing instead is we're running placement tests. We, on a regular basis, will send emails from your mailboxes to ours to see where they land. The inbox, the spam folder, the promotions folder, sometimes they don't get delivered at all. And that is like one of the best indicators that we have to the overall health of your email infrastructure. We use that data in addition to other data points to regularly monitor your email infrastructure and trigger alerts whenever there is a problem that does need to be protected. There are ways to better simulate natural mailbox activity for the mailboxes that you are sending from. When you're running cold outreach, that isn't very natural. Why? Because you're sending a larger number of emails and the response rates are just naturally going to be lower than your internal conversation. So there are ways to better balance your response rates in the eyes of ESPs, just so you're not triggering a red flag. And of course, the many guardrails that I did mention previously, like the number one thing that you can do to improve your deliverability is just not be a spammer. If you're not a spammer, then you're more likely to land in the inbox. List hygiene is very important. We're big fans of Clay for their waterfall enrichment and zero bounce in terms of their verification. But not just list hygiene, but list source accountability is also very important. Where the heck are these reps getting their leads from? Are they scraping it from some stale database? Or like, are they doing a better job of actually capturing the ICP that is most likely to resonate with your messaging? Are they using signals, for example? Clay just released custom signals that we've been having a lot of fun playing around with. Don't ghost your prospects. Google and Microsoft like when you get back to your prospects in a timely manner. I can keep going, Matt, but those are just some of the most important things that comes to mind, especially for revenue operations leaders.
Yeah, No, it's good stuff. It makes a lot of sense. Those are all things that people can go out and do today, especially things with, like you said, SPF, DMARC, DKIM, like that stuff is, like go and just make sure that your email is set up the right way. Think about, you mentioned like those things that you can do, like really taking it down to the per unit level, right? So we talked about shared IP addresses, obviously like multiple senders from multiple companies, all sharing one IP address. You can get down to having dedicated IP addresses at your company. And then you can also take it one step further where it's dedicated, IP addresses for each person that's sending stuff out. And again, you don't need to start there, but think about as you begin and kind of continue down the path of ramping things up, that's just a way for you to think about keeping the quality really high. And again, like you set up your infrastructure like this at the beginning, it's going to save you a whole lot of headaches and problems down the road because you won't have things that you need to go and unwind, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess one last question for you, and this is not RevOps related, it's not email deliverability related. So I like to ask a lot of non-work related questions, and I kind of shuffle around. I know you listened to some prior podcasts. I'm actually going to try to ask you one that maybe you haven't heard on any of those podcasts before. Who is like one person that has really helped you in your career, that took a chance on you, placed a bet on you when no one else should? Who's that one person that has really made an impact on your career and helping you to get to where you are today? Who are they? What did they do? And how can we, listening to this, take that away and maybe try to do that for somebody else?
That's a really good non-work related question. I don't think it is one person. I think it's a combination of a lot of people that have contributed to like everything that we are and I am today. My parents are very important to me. My first boss out of school was like extremely helpful to me, Matt Dobson, and giving me that chance, promoting me after the first 6 months, giving me ownership over our entire book of business after we had those initial challenges with the first agency. So really threw me into the deep end and allow me to experience challenges from a marketing perspective that I just wouldn't have otherwise had if I just worked at a larger company. My co-founder is always keeping me in check and is always challenging me just to be a better person and do a better job of optimizing towards this vision. But yeah, I don't think it's just one person. I think it's a combination of a lot of people that have supported me over my lifetime that I really wouldn't be here without.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you mentioned your first boss. He's a fellow Matt, so obviously giving all of us Matts out there a good name. I like to hear that. The thing I heard there that I think, again, we can all, kind of take away is for all of us, right? And we're constantly faced with new problems, new challenges, things that we haven't experienced before. And we may not have a resume to back things up or really any sort of pedigree or reason why anyone should take a chance on us, why they should give us that job, give us that project, give us that thing to do. And so keep that in mind, right? Some people may not have that experience. They may not have the thing on their resume, and that's okay. You got to take a chance on some people, and you never know the sort of output and things that you'll get from them. It can be pretty magical.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Mustafa. Well, thank you very much for joining, my friend, for dropping some knowledge on us all about email deliverability, human oversight, some safeguards that you can put in place. But I've got nothing else for you. That's all I've got for you, my friend. So thank you.
Thanks so much for having me on the pod.
Thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode, everybody.
For more great content like this, join our community at RevOpsCoop.com and check out the links provided in the show notes.
Keep it RevOpsAF, y'all.